Hello and welcome, this is EagleEye621, and today we are back in my armor testing world. Now if you have not seen my previous videos from this world, I highly recommend my video on armor, on tools, and on weapons. They're a little bit longer, but they're all properly time-stamped. They will give you some really critical information about the game. But we are back here today to talk specifically about this weapons. Now, if you watched that weapons one, you may remember that I argued specifically now that netherite is a thing, in your matchup between sharpness and smite for your sword, you should now be putting smite, not sharpness, on your netherite sword, specifically because of your ability to one-shot all of these undead mobs, and that for the rest of these hostile mobs, the difference wasn't big enough to matter, and that you switch back over and put your sharpness on your axe, as opposed to when you had diamond, it was better to have sharpness on your sword and smite on your axe. And then in my Discord, I got a question/comment, well, what about passive or neutral mobs? And you can see that Graph Guy has decided to make another chart right here. And let's talk specifically about when it comes to neutral mobs and neutral mobs only, does smite still win over the sharpness when it comes to your netherite sword and axe? So let's start from the bottom and take a look at a couple of things. And now, if you've seen the other video, you'll know that when it comes to your sharpness sword, you can have 11 hit points. Each heart is 2 points, but I'm just going to talk hit points because it's easier. Or 15 with a crit shot. And when it comes to your sweeping edge, that's going to be a 9.25 to any of the animals that are not hit directly. That's because with Sweeping Edge 3, it's 75% of the damage. So it's reduced damage, but dealt to all of the mobs. Now, when it comes to your smite, you have to remove the smite bonus, because we are not going to be talking about any undead of these passive mobs. There is one up there, I'll get to it, but it doesn't really matter. Which means that you can do 8 points of damage, which is the same if you didn't enchant it at all, or 12 with a critical shot, or 6 hit points when it comes to the sweeping edge. So now as we work our way up the passive and neutral mob chain, you will see we start here with the pufferfish, the cod, salmon, tropical fish, and rabbit. And because those have 3 hit points, it doesn't matter. When we go up one more notch to the chicken and the snow golem at 4 hit points, you can see it still doesn't matter. And then we go up one more rung to the bat and the parrot, which are 6 hit points. And again, you can see that the 6 means it is a one-shot for both. Now, when it comes to the parrot, though, it does have some special consideration to take into account. So if we grab a unenchanted sword right here and we open this chest, and then put the sword away and grab all of these things, well, let's put a jukebox down, let's get a bird, and let's see if we can make him a friend. Come on, come on, it's a video, just be my friend, thank you. And let's put some music on. And of course, flew away. Get back over there. Why does this happen on all of my videos? None of my testing did it ever take this long. Come on, come on, come on, do the thing. Do the thing. All right, come on, come on. There we go. Okay. If that doesn't deserve a sub, I don't know what deserves a sub. So sub and ring that bell. The bottom line is that parrots are delightful. And if you murder parrots, don't sub. I don't want you as a sub if you murder parrots. Just X off the video right now and go away. Don't do that. So let's put this all back and continue on our journey with these beats thumping in the background. So now when it comes to the next rung up, which is our sheep and wolf, that has an 8 hit point advantage, and you can see that here now we do have some distinction. Our sweeping edge on the smite is not enough to kill the sheep or the wolf. Now when it comes to wolf, you're not going to have enough of them that's going to matter. However, when it comes to fire aspect, which is 7.5 hit points, although of course the water will stop it and it doesn't affect all the mobs. Then again, we are back to our one-shot, whereas our sharpness can one-shot it without the fire. So here is your first, potentially only, we'll find out, major distinction. If you need to kill a huge amount of sheep and you want to be able to one-shot them, and you're trying to collect that raw mutton because it can't be cooked, then it does make a difference here, although that is an extremely niche situation. And our next rung up is the biggest by far at 10 hit points, with the cat, the cow, fox, the mushroom, the squid, the ocelot, pig, bee, dolphin, and the weak panda. Not all the pandas, specifically the weak one at 10. You can see here this is not actually at 10, this is at 9.25. So now neither one can one-shot this group unless we are talking about using fire aspect, in which case we are back to a one-shot. So again, it's 2 shots without fire or 1 shot with fire. For both of them, no distinction. Let's keep climbing, and we have our skeleton horse. Now, I did say we're not talking about any undead mobs. Skeleton horse is an undead mob, so this doesn't really count. We have to go all the way back over to here, where you can see what kind of damage it can do with that smite, and that is 20.5, and then 24 with the crit, or 16.75 with the sweeping edge, which means that back over here, the smite actually does take this in a one-shot without any fire, as opposed to the sharpness, which does not. So again, an extremely niche situation. You're not going to be mass murdering skeleton horses, so this is not going to come up. This doesn't matter. And now we have the start of our range for horses, donkeys, mules, and llamas. Those have a variable amount of health between 15 and 30, so they go all the way up to the top. And you can see that as we get to right here, this would be 16, not enough to be 17, then we have reached the end of our distinction in terms of the not the skeleton horses, but all the other horses, donkeys, mules, or llamas, if very, very small chance, if they have 15 or 16 health, then you can see that you cannot one-shot them with the smite, but you can one-shot them with a sweeping edge for the sharpness, but the majority of them are going to have more health than that. So again, this doesn't matter, and we're going to get to something over there in 1 second. Let's keep climbing up, and we are now at 20 hit points for the Strider. All of the other pandas, that does not include the weak panda, the villager, the wandering trader, and the tamed wolf or the dog. And again, if you're mass murdering dogs, don't subscribe. Don't be that person. Just don't do it. And here you can see again that we are now beyond the range of all of these things. We can do our 6 with the sweeping edge, or 9.25 with the sharpness versus the smite. And at 20, you're going to be talking about 4 for the smite and 3 for the sharpness. Is that a big difference? Are you murdering villagers? You really shouldn't even be using weapons. You should be using lava buckets. You can't possibly murder multiple of the wandering traders because they don't pop out unless you do some very complicated nonsense. And leave those poor striders alone. If you need string, use spiders unless you're in a peaceful world, in which case, fine. But otherwise, spiders. Leave the striders alone in their home. And let's keep on climbing the rest of the way up. And at 30, we hit the polar bear as well as the turtle. And we're also at the end of the range for all of our horses, donkeys, mules, and llamas. And again, if we're talking about 30, if you're going to mass murder turtles, when you can only do 6 at a time, 6 damage at a time, means you need 5 shots. Some quick math with Eagle Eye 621. Whereas with the 9.25, you can do it in 4. So sure, 1 extra sweep. I will also just tell you that the difference even here when you can one-shot them at this range with the fire aspect, are you going to want to wait around for the fire aspect? This kind of kind of a neutral here. But what is this chart? And this chart or graph is the sharpness and the smite, but again removed for the axe. And for the sharpness, it's 13 hit points or 18 with a critical, and 10 hit points or 15 with a crit, because the smite doesn't count. So if you can see, our range is 10 to 18, but here it's 10 to 15 and 13 to 18. And as you can see here, we do have the 10, but there's nothing all the way up to the 15, which is the crit for both of them. And again, you can have some very unlikely scenario where one of your donkeys or llamas is in this range, but again, they're much more likely to be above where it could come into play. So essentially, it doesn't matter. For your axes, the sharpness or the smite does not matter when it comes to passive or neutral mobs. And when it comes to the sword, the sharpness only matters if we're talking about specifically mass murdering sheep with our looting 3 and not wanting the mutton to be cooked. We need that raw mutton, and we need to use our looting 3. Then it matters. In all other situations, it's really pretty much negligible. Now, there is a wild card in all of this, and that is most of these mobs, almost all of them, if you are farming, you are going to be farming with automated farms. You're not going to be manually killing them for the extra you get with your looting, because it's just too player intensive, and it's much easier to let the other farms run in the background and just not bother. I have a whole bunch of those as well that are hopefully going to be linked down below, or you can find them elsewhere on my channel. And the other wild card is when you need to kill something in a hurry, that extra click that you may need for a passive mob doesn't really matter, whereas for a hostile mob, that extra click could be very important because they're doing damage to you while you are trying to kill them, versus these guys are mostly just standing around. So the final conclusion is, when it comes to just passive mobs or neutral mobs, it's really pretty much a tie. You can give a very, very, very slight edge to the sharpness, but that's only specifically here, sheep, looting, no fire. Otherwise, it's really just a toss-up. And when you add in the hostile mobs and the rest of it, then once again, I am going to recommend that when it comes to your netherite sword, not a diamond sword, specifically a netherite sword, Smite 5 is where it's at. Sharpness 5 is for the axe. And if you've ever watched any of these videos, you know there's only one way this can end in my armor testing world, and that has to do with me going into survival. And, yeah. Charged Creeper. Subscribe to Eagle Eye 621. You know where it's at. And with that, I would like to thank you for watching the video. Found this helpful? Be sure to hit that like button. Found it interesting? Maybe even consider tell one of your friends or your favorite Minecraft YouTuber to see if they'll build this in their world. And for more videos just like this, do be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And also join us over on the Discord, where maybe your idea will lead to my next chart or graph. Thanks for stopping by. This is what it sounds like when a dead eagle eye waves. It's just clicking. There's no waving. Why are you still watching? There's not going to be any waving. Thanks for stopping by.